Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK,
And I'm Courtney.
and welcome to Sci-Fi Sunday.
We are much more thrilled than it sounds like we are.
It's true. I don't have a voice, so recording a podcast is interesting when you can't talk.
Yes. And this is the first day I've been home longer than a few hours and over a week.
Same.
So how are you? How are things going?
I'm just tired. At one point yesterday, one of the kids looked at me and asked me a question, and I said, I'm on hour 80 of being around you this week. Don't talk to me.
Look, I think that's fair.
Yeah, it was my kiddo's musical this past weekend, and I am thoroughly exhausted.
But you did it, and it's over now, and it was good.
It was good. It was cute. They're great, and they're sweet, and I never want to spend that much time with them ever again.
I think that's fair. That is how I feel about everyone in the world. I don't know if there's anyone I would want to spend that much time with.
Well, the problem was it was also state testing this past week. So, like, they were testing during the day and then going to rehearsals at night. So, like, they were just batty. And, like, Friday, Teresa took the day off. And at one point I texted her, I said, I don't know if I'm just, like, extra tired or if the kids are, like, next level today because I hate them all. But Friday was April Fool's Day, so like it was a combination of both. They were just horrible.
I think you also texted me that day and told me you hated all of the kids.
Yeah.
I believe that was Friday. Who knows? But that was a day this week that happened.
Yes.
I told someone at the bar on Thursday, they were like trying to decide if they were going to order another round. And I was like, I mean, it's Friday. What else are you going to do? And she just looked at me and she was like, well, it's Thursday, but I like the spirit and I will take another. And I was like, glad I could push you in the right direction.
Fantastic.
Even though I do not know what I'm talking about.
Well, and this week coming up, I am scoring exams, like the state exams for last week. And so I now have to go to other meetings for like scoring all the state tests. So I'm just like brain dead.
I'm exhausted, but to be fair, half of my week I was working and half of my week I was at Broadway shows. So I went and saw Little Girl Blue this week, which is about Nina Simone.
Okay.
It was phenomenal. It was the best show I saw this week. It had the woman who plays Nina also wrote it.
Oh, okay.
And it's off Broadway, but it's at New World Stages.
Oh, okay.
And then on Wednesday I saw Company. And
I was so upset that you were at Company on Wednesday, not because I wanted to see Company, but because Austin Colby was also at Company on Wednesday and I miss him.
Yeah, it was, so I saw the understudy. I didn't see Katrina Link. And
Okay.
I thought she was phenomenal. Like, I thought the entire cast that was there was really good. And I mean, seeing Patti LuPone sing Ladies Who Lunch is just a life-changing experience. Like, it's worth it for that.
Right.
So, it was just a little long for me. But it's a good show. I mean, it's Stephen Sondheim, so it's not bad. It's just a little long. And then I went to a dress rehearsal with my friend Noelle for The Minutes Friday. I had no idea what it was about. None. I still don't know that I could tell you what it was about. And I saw it. But Noah Reed from Schitt's Creek was the main guy in it. And he did, the cast did phenomenal. Again, usually the show I'm not mad at it because of the cast.
Right.
The cast did amazing. It was dress rehearsal, so they haven't even it's not even out yet or whatever. But that was a weird one.
All right.
I looked at Noelle when it was over and I was like, I have a lot of questions. Like the longer it goes, the more questions I have. And then it ended and I was like, I don't know anymore. So I mean, Noah Reed's great. There's a great cast. Otherwise, we didn't get a playbill because it was a rehearsal, so like I don't remember all of their names. I meant to look them up, but I did like recognize quite a few people in the show.
Okay.
But it's just I don't recommend spending extravagant amounts of money to see it.
Okay.
Um,
That's fair. Sorry, I just realized that I didn't mute my computer when I always yell at you for not muting your computer.
That's okay. I didn't hear anything if it went off, so.
Oh, it did. Okay. But that doesn't mean that.
That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, like you might not hear it and the recording will still hear it.
Right. I thought you were going to tell me you hadn't started recording yet, even though I very much remember it saying recording now. And I had that slight panic moment when you said that.
Turn off. There we go. Okay. I turned off the thing that would go off.
Excellent.
The stupid thing is the only thing that actually goes off on my computer is my phone. So like if I have my phone in my hand, I don't need it to also be going off on my computer.
Right.
What a day.
What a week.
Yeah. It was my week was fine. It was just so long that like I don't really have stories because I was just so tired the whole week.
That's kind of how I obviously I have stories, I just told them, but
yeah,
it was very long and there was not a lot of resting time.
I mean,
needed.
If you want a peek at my mental state this week, halfway through the show Friday night, I realized that I had never actually blocked this weird thing that we were adding into the show. And so, because the script of Willy Wonka Jr. is a weird script. When I tell you that this script expects you to have technical ability that no school that has done a musical ever in the history of musicals has the technical ability to do, like it is bananas. And during the like candy boat scene, the script like calls for like blue light spiders, like black light spiders on the stage. Yeah, literally
I think
no idea.
Confused.
Yeah. So we made like a giant spider out of like pool noodles and stuff, but then completely forgot to tell the kids how to be a spider with the pool noodles. So I just threw pool noodles at children and was like, go. Like that's the mental state I was at. I was like, you know what? No one's going to know what's happening anyway. Just go on stage. Do something.
Fair. But that scene is wacky anyway, so like it was probably fine. Yeah. Like out of all the scenes you could have like just throw them into, that was a good one to just throw them into.
For sure. And if it was going to ruin the show, I wouldn't have done it. But like at that point I was like, you know what? Just go on stage. I don't care.
I love it.
Yep. And then yesterday's show, I needed to go to the store to buy candy bars and bubbles, which is a very odd sentence, but I didn't bring my wallet when I went to the store to buy candy bars and bubbles. So yeah, that's where I'm at for how competent I am this week.
Fair.
I think I went to bed at 9:00 last night and I didn't get up until 11 this morning and I still don't feel like I slept.
I went to bed at like 3:30 this morning and got up at like a few times, but the last time I got up at like 10:30 and I do not feel like I slept, but I did not sleep. So
yeah, so apologize for the lack of enthusiasm in our voices today.
don't worry, I am ready to bring some enthusiasm.
Fantastic. We watched Stargate SG-1, Season 1, Episode 5. It was called The First Commandment, which I kind of really like as a title, but I only just, right now when I said it out loud, realized that I like it as a title.
Well, it's okay. When I wrote it down earlier, I read it as The First Commander, and I wrote it correctly, and I just realized it when you said it out loud that I read it incorrectly, even though I wrote it with my own hand.
Perfect. It was rated 6.7 stars, so it's a little lower than last week, which is
What was last week's?
last week I think was 7.1 or 7 something.
Okay, that's what
It
I
was
was
only like just at 7, but it was in the
Right.
sevens. I get why this wasn't rated very high as an episode. I liked it, but it was definitely slow.
I think I liked it as a storyline better than last week's episode, but the structure bothered me a bit. So
That's fair.
I
The problem is I liked the implications for the characters in the future. I didn't really necessarily like the story itself, if that makes sense. Like I liked the emotional stuff, but didn't. It came out on August 22nd, 1997. The top song was still I'll Be Missing You. And the number one movie was a movie that I have literally never heard of called Copland.
That is.
It stars Sylvester Stallone and Robert De Niro.
That makes sense.
And I know it's like a noir cop thing, and it looks like something I would never enjoy.
I mean, that is exactly what would sound like the minute you said Sylvester Stallone and Robert De Niro. I mean, that's all I could imagine. So.
Yeah. It was directed by Dennis Barry, who is returning. And it was written by Robert C. Cooper. He is a producer of the show. In fact, he's a producer, I think, on all of the Stargate series. He's credited as the creator of some of the spin-offs. Mm-hmm. And he will go on to write a total of 39 episodes for the series.
Real invested.
Yes.
Nice.
And we have 2 guest stars. And the first one, when I opened IMDb to look at this episode, his picture is the picture for the episode. And I was like, I know that person. Who is that person? Like, I know that person, but like, I don't.
I did that. I was like, he's a dad.
Yeah. But the context is so different. And the characterization is so different. I was like, who is that? So I clicked on his IMDb and I just go, oh, just kidding. And I literally didn't even read anything else on his IMDb because I feel like you don't need to. Because William Russ plays Captain Jonas Hansen in this episode, but he is more well known for this tiny little show that formed everyone our age's entire life called a Boy Meets World, where he plays Alan Matthews, the Padre that we all wished we had in the 90s.
I saw him and I was like, he's the dad. Whose dad was he? That was exactly how I saw him.
And then the other guest star is Roger Cross. He played Lieutenant Connor. He has been in probably like one episode of literally every show I've ever watched in my entire life. But his only real like extended role that he was that he was in 45 episodes of the show 24, which I never actually watched.
I also did not. I heard it was good.
Yeah. I think I randomly watched 1 or 2 episodes of like season 6 or something because Kim Raver was in those episodes, and she plays Teddy on Grey's Anatomy. Mm-hmm. And I decided that I was like going to go back and watch everything that everyone from Grey's Anatomy had ever done. And then I got through 2 episodes of 24 and decided I was no longer going to watch everything that everyone on Grey's Anatomy had ever done.
It was probably a good choice. Very quickly decided. Good job.
Yeah. the blurb says O'Neill and the SG-1 team are sent to investigate the disappearance of SG-9, only to discover that Captain Jonas Hansen is ruling the planet like a god.
Correct.
Now, the only thing I don't like about that description is that we learn all of this information before the episode even really starts. Like, that's not really the plot.
Right.
Because the cold open is a bunch of people that we don't know
Mm-hmm.
running through the woods. And one guy gets away. And so Hansen just looks at the other guy and is like, burn him. And then they do. They just set this man on fire. And I was like, okay, that's where we're at today. Fantastic.
Yes, I started it and I was like, did I start in the middle of the episode? I didn't care for the cold open because I didn't understand what was happening and I don't know the show well enough to figure it out.
I don't care for cold opens that are focused on characters that we don't know who they are yet.
I agree with that to an extent. I don't mind a cold open sometimes in like a horror show.
Right. But I mean, like when you have a main cast of characters that you're following, like shows that are more like story of the week, like monster of the week kind of things, where the cold open is like the murder.
Mm-hmm.
Or like NCIS does a really good job of the cold open is almost always the case that they're going to solve, even though we don't know who it is.
Right.
But this show hasn't done that before. And it's too early in the show. Like they need to either be setting up how things are going to go forever, or they need to, like, you know what I mean? It's just too early in the show to randomly do that.
I feel like with just the first 5 episodes, they're like testing out to see how they're going to do it.
Yeah, it's very much still in the we don't know what we're doing phase.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then after the credits, our SG team appears on the planet to look for what we know is SG-9 only because the blurb told me that it took a while before they actually said what they were looking for.
Yes.
So they get to this planet and they're talking about how the UV levels are like really, really high and they're all going to burn to death. And so they're surprised that there's trees there,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't actually make sense to me. Why they would be surprised that trees could live with high UV light, because they don't have the same systems that humans do. Right. But anyway.
Yeah, they talked about how there were no birds, and I've seen that like.
Yes. Yeah, that was my next note. Like Sam thinks that's weird that there's that many trees but no birds.
Yeah, and I've seen that like trope in a lot of stuff, and I couldn't remember specifically anything, so I tried to look it up, and all I could see was the birds aren't real conspiracy, and I was like, okay, this is not helpful. So I do not remember, but it is a common trope I've seen in things.
Yes, but I also just think it's like in this case, I think it's more supposed to be the like forebodingness of lack of life form, because like
no, I know that's
yeah.
like that's how I've seen it in other things too, and I liked. I'm not saying I didn't like it. I'm just saying it's a common trope that I've come across and completely forgot everything I've ever seen it in, and I like it.
Okay.
I didn't end with that. Sorry.
No, I agree. It's a trope, but I didn't feel in the moment that it was supposed to be tropey. I felt like she was just like, you know what I mean? It was just one of those things where like, of course Sam would notice that there's no birds. Like, of course she noticed that. Like, and then they're like wandering around trying to find what the SG team that they think they're there to rescue. And all of a sudden, Daniel gets gorilla attacked. But truthfully, for as often as I don't like special effects and stuff, I was obsessed with that moment because it wasn't even special effects. It was like genuine army camouflage training. And I did not see him there until he popped out of the leaves. Like, I was like,
Yep.
okay, I see you.
Yep. I agree.
So the guy who attacked Daniel stands down when he realizes that it is O'Neill's team because he is one of our SG people, Lieutenant Connor. And he takes them to where the body was burned to explain kind of what has been going on. There's some army, like there's some like military lingo happening here that like I always forget because like Connor literally says permission to talk badly about a superior officer. And I was like, oh, I forgot that like it's literally actually illegal to do that. Like,
right.
Because on TV, people just do it all the time.
Yeah.
And it turns out that the leader of the SG9 team, Captain Hansen, has kind of gone apeshit. And fun fact, he's also Sam's ex-fiance.
I was very confused at first because I thought they were saying Captain Hammond. And I was like, why is he here? Why is he missing? Why is he not back? I was very confused for a second before I realized that
Captain Hansen as in Bob.
Right. Yes. I'm familiar. Saw them live at Disney with Caitlin and Jamie. It was a great time.
Good. But we find out that Sam was engaged to this man and she gave him the ring back because he was kind of a douche.
Which is accurate. Yes. She made a good decision.
And then one of the funniest moments in the episode happens because Jack is giving like Sam orders and she's like, no, sir.
Yeah.
And he's like, excuse me, like, you don't get to tell me no. I'm literally your commander.
Right.
And then he gives Connor an order and Connor says, no, sir. And he just goes, does it say Colonel anywhere on my uniform? Like, what is happening here? And I was like, I appreciated that.
Yes.
So then Connor is filling us in on what has been going on. Basically, the sun on that planet is too hot for people to live really outside of these caves that they live in right now. Mm-hmm. And they thought that the people who came through the gates were gods because every time somebody comes through the Stargate, people think it's gods. But then Hansen was like, no, yes, I am your god. Ha ha ha.
I was like, absolutely, I'm in.
Which, okay, then they went further to explain that, like, the anthropologist who was with them, like Daniel's role on that team, was like, no, like, for the moment, we should kind of go along with it to try to understand how they live and, like, get the respect, which the SG1 team does a lot where they're like, we're not gods, but we are, like, important, powerful people. Please tell us everything about your society kind of thing. So like the initial reasoning thought process probably didn't necessarily mean for them to go crazy, but then they did.
Yeah, I think it was probably the right approach in the beginning.
Yes.
And then Jonas just like went off the rails.
Which feels very, very much like something he would do. Just sorry.
It's okay.
Then we also see that we get a clip of Hansen and his men in the cave, and when he finds out that they sent SG1, he like rips his dog tags off. And I was like, oh, okay. So like up until this moment, he like was living in this like fantasy world where he was doing the right thing. And now he can't continue to do that. Like he knows that now that they're there, that he has fucked up.
Yeah.
but he doesn't care
No.
is the problem.
It's like he got excited almost to like fight them, it seemed like. When he heard, he was like,
Which we find out later is because he has got to be the most accurately portrayed narcissistic, toxic like man I've ever seen. The way,
100%.
So then we find out that nothing is alive on the planet except for plants because of how strong the sun is, and the people, and they all live underground. And while I believe that, I also have some very serious questions. What do these people eat?
Yes. I mean, they had the mac and cheese, or that tasted like chicken. Is what SG-1 was eating, and I wonder if that was something similar that we could find on this planet.
I was confused as to if that was something that they brought with them, like rations.
I also wasn't sure.
Because it sounds more like something that they would bring with them and not something that would just grow naturally on a planet.
I mean, no, but
no. Of course, what the people eat is never once addressed because apparently it is not important, except for me, because I'm hungry all the time.
Yes.
We get more of the backstory of what's going on. We find out that Hansen basically was kind of on a power trip, but then he went outside for 2 straight days in the sun to rescue a child. And when he came back, he was absolutely insane and power tripping.
Yeah.
So they think that the sun had something to do with it.
I mean, if you put me outside in the sun for 2 days straight, I would also go crazy, probably.
But the thing is, then as the episode goes on, they kind of never explain that again. They don't make the sun seem like the problem, and they just make this guy seem like a fucking douche.
Right. Yes.
So there's that. A lot of the backstory, I was like, this is really interesting, but then we never touch on it again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we go, it's nighttime, and the SG team is making camp because they don't want to travel during the night because that's when Hansen and his cave dwellers come out of the caves. But it turns out that they're also using the night to build a giant community, buildings. We find out later it's supposed to be a temple, but I was like, cult, religion. Oh, very thin line.
Yes. That is why I've decided that this is a cult.
That's
Jonas went there to be a cult leader unintentionally.
Speaking of cult leaders, I just watched a video today about Jared Leto's summer camp, and I had never seen anything about this before. And I'm disturbed on so many levels.
You are behind the times. He's very much a cult leader. It's a lot.
It's a lot. I knew he wasn't a good person. I didn't think he was a good person, but I wasn't quite up to date on details of this.
It's been happening for a while because it was based on what was the band? 30 Seconds to Mars?
Yeah. No, and I think the first camp was in 2015. So it's been a while.
Yeah, right.
But I was completely unaware.
Well, I'm sorry you've now been enlightened. But yeah, it's wild.
Pictures from those camps are terrifying.
I went down a rabbit hole one day. It's a thing.
Yeah. So Hansen, aka Jared Leto, is having this temple built to him. And then the SG camp gets attacked, and the cave dwellers are all scared of Teal'c's weapon, but they do take Connor before they disappear.
I would like to talk about the costume choices here.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I had the same thought in the beginning, but I forgot when you were talking about it the first time. So they're regular people who have been sickly because of the sun theoretically and living in this culty life. So like they're not doing great, but they're
Yes.
still regular people. And they look like they were half of them were like naked cavemen.
Yeah.
And the other half, I just kept calling the breadstick people because it looked like they had breadsticks on their heads.
Are you talking about like the weird dome helmet things?
Mhm.
Well, fun fact in the trivia of this episode, um, those weird dome helmets were symbols. So the beehive shaped mud helmets are probably descendants of
Yes.
the Asaro people of Papua New Guinea. So they were a tribal connection.
All right. I like to refer to them as the breadstick people still.
Okay.
Mhm.
I would say that that's offensive if they had ever in the episode done anything to show any kind of cultural appreciation for the Asaro people. But
Right.
since other than wearing weird helmets, you would not have known
Right.
what they were doing at all. I
And they
will.
also weren't like super well done. So
No, 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 no.
yeah, they didn't make the mark of whatever they were trying to do.
Correct. So then it's the next morning, and Hansen is looking out at the half completed temple, and he says, "You know what? It's not going to get built fast enough if we only work at night. We're going to work during the day too." And his lieutenant is like, "Sir,
We built
you can't do that. They're going to die." And he said, "It's a necessary sacrifice."
You know who else says that? Cult leaders.
I was going to say dictators. I thought of Hitler, but
Also,
yeah,
also dictators. Yes.
yeah, like that's.
One and the same.
Ooh. Um, so then we show the SG team traveling again, and Sam and Daniel are discussing what she saw in Hansen. And it sounds a little bit too much like Jack for me in that moment. She's actually just describing Jack. But also, like, on the real, it also sounds a lot like a lot of people I know in the military.
I mean,
Because Daniel, I mean, and they were not saying it like kindly. Like Daniel was saying that like the government often is not very great about how they use soldiers and the mental health situations of soldiers. And like the crazier you are, the weirder situations you're like put into. And like vets and mental health care for vets is a huge issue. And it was a little sometimes the show just like is like we're gonna have a really obnoxious premise, but we're gonna just like throw in something like really, really cutting toward the government right in the
right.
middle of the episode.
I mean, and to be fair, anyone in the military that I know that's like gone away to war or to a different country, not people that necessarily just trained here or worked on
Yeah.
stuff here, um, their mental health isn't great. Their physical health also isn't great. And that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
But they're
And
not
like
wrong.
and like
Yes.
I said the other day, the thing that I like the most about the political aspect of this show is that the show is incredibly pro-military and still anti-government. Like
Right.
it's like
Right.
because like a lot of times people like try to say that like you can't support our troops
If you're mad at our country
if you're like
or
yeah or like they try to like make the individual soldiers and like the military equal to the government, and it's just not the same thing at all. And you can very, very, very much support the US military and still think that the way the government treats the military is not correct.
right.
And I appreciate it very much.
Yes. Yes.
Then as they're walking they stumble upon this cult camp, and they see that Connor is tied to a pole, which
Wait, I think I think this it was a very small thing that doesn't actually matter, but it made me laugh out loud. Um, Whenever they were talking about something, I don't specifically remember what, and Tilk was like just standing around, and somebody told him he needed to smile or look friendly or something.
Oh no, that's later because
Oh, that's later.
I
Okay.
have notes about that. Yes.
Excellent. Never mind.
But I missed in Connor's backstory that he was giving everyone. He mentions that Hanson's choice punishment for people is to tie them to a pole for 7 days straight, and if they survive the burning sun, then they're allowed back in camp. And so Connor is now tied to a pole, and he had already said that he would rather take a bullet than die like that.
Mhm.
So foreshadowing.
Yep.
And then we have a scene. So Jack goes to to try to rescue Connor. He's like, I'm gonna go figure this out, and he gets up to go. And they're talking about what's going on with the people and the working during the day and the sacrifice part of it, blah blah blah. And Daniel says that it's a lot like Abraham, and Teal'c says like, who is Abraham? And so Daniel explains the myth story, depending on your take, but the story of Abraham sacrificing his son and then not really sacrificing it. And this was a moment where I realized that Teal'c is the best thing for the show, not just because I love Teal'c, but because a lot of times when you have characters that are all really, really, really intelligent, you can isolate viewers.
Right.
But by having Teal'c, who is a very not stupid, like he's not the
he's very
dumb character.
intelligent.
He just is not a part of this world, so he needs the explanation. So Daniel and Sam have to explain things to Teal'c that in a normal conversation they would never explain.
Yeah.
And that means that all of the mythology and biblical allusions in the story will get to be explained so that the viewers who aren't familiar will know what's going on. Because like I obviously knew the story of Abraham, but like last week when they were talking about the Minoan people, or no, 2 weeks ago in the Minoan people, or last week when they were talking about the BRCA parts of your brain, those are things that I would have needed explained because they're not things I'm super familiar with. So Teal'c just is the best way to do that without trying to talk down to your audience.
Right. I 100% agree. And he also leaves an opening for comedic relief as well whenever he asks these questions, which is fun.
Yes. And then Sam, they see that the soldiers from the SG9 team who have followed Hanson are like trying to beat up one of the poor cave people. And Sam, as she does, is like, well, I'm going to step in and save him because me being a poor woman alone by myself is clearly going to right every injustice in the world.
Yes. Yes, that is so far her role.
And they're like, don't go. Okay. Or not. And Teal'c's like, I would stop her. She's not going to listen. What is the point?
He's not wrong.
So then, of course, she does get kidnapped. But again, she is Hanson's ex-fiance, who he is still apparently in love with.
Apparently.
Although what he calls love is not anything I would ever wish on anyone.
No.
And Hanson explains to her that he's doing everything he is doing in order to save the people. And then I don't know exactly what he said next because my next note just says, Hanson is a toxic narcissist. I'm so upset by this, and he's still playing her.
Yes.
Basically, he is like, oh, no, he's just saying, oh, I know what he said. He's like, you said that I'd never amount to anything, and look at me now. All of the things that you hated about me are the skills that I need to save these people. Oh, God.
Mm-hmm.
then outside of the camp, Teal'c and Daniel and Jack, who Jack has come back and realized that Sam has run away and is unsurprised. And they find a cave person who is separated from the rest of the people. And he freaks out because he recognizes the Jaffa, which was a weird twist there.
Yeah.
And this is where the smile thing happens because Jack's like, Teal'c, no, he's good. He's our friend. Teal'c, show him your friendly smile.
Yeah.
And Teal'c smiles and he goes, okay, maybe we need to work on that.
Yeah. It's so funny.
And so then they're talking to this guy about what's going on, and we find out that Jonas has said that he will make the sky orange and make it safe for them. What that means?
We do not know.
No. Then we go back to Jonas, and he is continuing to manipulate Sam and say awful, horrible things to her. And then is like, she's like, you only want me here to do this for you. He's like, no, I want you. I want you to be my goddess after you do these things for me.
Right. Which, like, obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously, the liar.
The problem is, I don't think that he's lying. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, no, like, I think he would let her be with him, but
I think that he would
because he wants her to be be there.
He would think that he was doing her a favor.
Right.
Oh God, I hate it.
I know.
So then as this poor caveman who never gets a name is explaining about the orange sky thing, we find out that Teal'c is the only one who can actually probably make this thing work because he's the only one who has any idea what it's about, because it is Goa'uld technology that was put in place so that because the planet isn't really habitable, the Goa'uld put this thing in place to make it habitable when they were basically people farming.
Right.
So then while Teal'c and Daniel and the caveman are going to find the other device, Jack sneaks down to rescue Connor and immediately gets caught because of course he does.
I have a couple of questions about this scene. First of all, where on earth did he get blow darts at? Like,
I mean, they have a full military pack of stuff. He could have had them in there.
But it would make sense if he had like a gun with him or like a knife, but a blow dart? That's a strange choice, in my opinion.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah. And also, this feels very similar to like how Sam tried to escape, and I think it was episode 2, and it was like, I'm just gonna leave and everything's gonna be fine. And it was like, it felt like he just walked in, he's like, I'm just gonna take this guy and everything's gonna be fine. And I was like, yeah. What do people think is happening?
Yeah, no, that's not how that works. It also kind of reminded me of the scene in the Star Wars prequel trilogy where they're like tied up in the pit and they're like, oh, if we get these chains undone, we're going to be able to get out of here. Like, they're not in a pit full of monsters going to kill them anyway.
Right.
Like, you solved one of your 87 problems. Congratulations.
Right.
Then they bring Jack to the main camp and Hanson's like, I'm going to kill him. And then Sam's like, please don't. And he's like, okay, fine. Turn on the machine and I'll spare him. Right. So she does. Mm-hmm. Of course, she genuinely at this point does not know that there needs to be 2 machines. Mm-hmm. And that even though she did exactly what she told him to, it was not going to work. And then My next note just says that Hanson is off his fucking rocker because he takes everyone to the Stargate to like have some kind of weird ceremony where he's gonna push Connor and Jack back into the Stargate, but without signaling Earth, so then the iris won't be open, so then they'll die as soon as they materialize on Earth. But then like it's not his fault. He just sent them back to Earth.
Right.
And like also show them that he can make the sky orange and like marry Sam while she's still handcuffed. Like I don't know what any of his logic in this whole ceremony was.
Because he truly seemed like he felt like he was doing the good guy things in the back, even though they were gonna die. He was like, but I'm sending them to Earth, and it's like that doesn't matter if they die.
Like he's genuinely insane.
Right.
Then the cave guy like shoots Teal'c's weapon and scares everyone because he's got magic, like old technology.
Mm-hmm.
And Daniel is like, listen, Jonas is not a god. He's just a person. Nothing here is real. Here, we are the gods. We will turn on the... He doesn't say that they're the gods. He's totally like, we're just one of you. But like, it's one of those things where it's like, he is not a god. I am. See, I actually made the sky orange.
Yeah.
He didn't. Like, okay. I see what you're doing. But...
yeah.
So then they turn on the machine and they save all the people by making the sky orange so that they can be outside. And then all the cave people are so happy they promptly toss Jonas into the Stargate.
I know, and I was like, this is where when they were talking about this at first, like sending them back and they were gonna die because the iris wasn't open. This was making me wonder again how like in the first episode, when the gold were trying to go through, they were just trapped there, but they didn't die unless their head got cut off. Because they were beating the door down and then they like just left. So is he just going to be trapped in the Stargate now, or did he die?
Well, I guess it depends, because with the gold, there would have, if they dropped it through and then the gate would have been able, no, I don't know. It depends. It depends on what happens on the... Okay, so Stargate's basically like a tunnel. And you got two doors.
Right.
And then this door is closed. So if you go in and you can get back out, then you can get back out. Okay. But if you go in and then both doors closed, then you are trapped, and then you die.
They threw him into the Stargate and then it didn't close because they still had to leave.
Yes, but if you saw that they had to reopen it to leave again and redial it, so they did close it.
Yeah. Okay, I missed that part.
Yes,
that does make more sense.
Mm-hmm. That is just my vague, unscientific explanation of what happens. I don't know.
Look, that's all that matters. Sounds like you vaguely know what you're talking about, and that's all that we promised. So
yeah, that's very true. So then they do have to dial a Stargate to go home. And so weirdly throughout the whole episode, all of this toxic manipulation that Jonas was doing, he was straight up quoting the Bible to like justify it.
Mm-hmm.
And it made Sam kind of upset because I think, this is what I gathered, this is all inference. I think that like he probably was like went through some shit after some war stuff, and Sam gave him the Bible as kind of like a comfort thing based on the way he was talking to her about always having it with him, and then how she reacted to him using the Bible. I feel like Sam is the religious one in this situation, which is a really interesting perspective because she is also like a hardcore scientific feminist, but like then also the religious one, and I kind of love that.
Yes.
But so then she's all sad because her ex-fiance, who she never really thought she could save, but always kind of hoped would turn out to be a better person, is now dead after almost committing genocide.
Right. Not a good situation.
And Jack comforts her in like the sweetest way, but also like he's an idiot. He's
Yeah.
like, I never really read this thing, but I did always remember the first commandment. And she said, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And he's like, okay, maybe not the first one.
Yeah.
He's like, but you're like, the big one, like don't kill
Big one.
anybody. Because she had the opportunity to kill Jonas and stop all of that rigmarole from happening. And she didn't because she has a hard time pulling the trigger. And Jack was trying to tell her that that makes her a better person for actually having a hard time. He was like, every time we have to pull the trigger, it makes us one step closer to Jonas.
Right.
And it was very sweet.
Nice. So now I have a general forum question.
Okay.
I would like to know how the Golds were involved, because I understand that they're the ones that like started this world.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that the orange sky was their technology.
Mm-hmm.
But then they were like, did they just leave and they were like, we're not going to rule these people? Or like, where did the Jaffa come in?
Yeah, no. So the Goa'uld basically, they stole a bunch of people from Earth.
Right.
And then they went and spread them throughout all these different planets and like terraformed these planets in order to basically create harvesting farms, like people farms.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not that they haven't used these people, but basically what probably happened is that somebody somewhere along the way broke the machine.
Mm-hmm.
So the sky thingy wasn't
working.
And the Goa'uld have so many other harvestable planets that it wasn't worth it for them to go back to these sick people.
So it's kind of like they just abandoned this planet.
Yeah, it was like, the plague went through this farm, so we don't need it. No mad cow disease for us.
Man, I hate the Goa'uld.
Yes, no, they're lovely, lovely creatures.
Speaking of, I did want to look this up, and surprise, surprise, I did not. But if you saw our Instagram this week, I posted a fun Care Bear meme that has an alien, like from Aliens the movie, coming out of it, and it looked so similar to the Goa'uld that I was like, I wonder if the Goa'uld was actually influenced by Alien, because it came out like 30 years later.
Yes,
79 to 2000, 20 years later. I can't do math. And so if anyone knows, you should tell us, because I find that very interesting, and that's exactly where my brain went. And then I shared the post, and then
you never looked it up again.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could always post it on Reddit. I'm sure someone would answer you there.
That's a good idea. I will post it on Reddit. Put a star beside that so I don't forget that. Yeah.
No, that was, sometimes the things that come up when you like Google tries to auto answer a question for you, were the Goa'uld influenced by, and instead of the A for alien, I accidentally pressed the L first, and it said by Lewis and Clark.
Were they influenced by Lewis and Clark? That doesn't feel right.
It doesn't feel right. No. I'm going to have to go ahead and say no. On the Lewis and Clark question.
Agree with that. I don't.
Okay, my mom said, well, they left Earth before Lewis and Clark were born. But no, I'm not talking about the fictional version. I'm talking about the actual creation of the alien species by the writers of the show.
Which happened much longer after Lewis and Clark.
Unless these men left Earth at some point that I'm unaware of.
Look, I don't even know anymore. Anything's possible, probably.
Oh my God. That was one of the funniest lines in this episode, though. They were like, what on earth makes you think that we could do that? We're not on Earth.
I like the line where they talked about going to Oz.
I did
He was
did
like, what did he
appreciate that
say?
one
He
too.
said,
He said we're off to see the wizard.
yeah. And then like 10 minutes later, he
And then
was like,
they were like, yeah, blah, 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 like the sun, you can't go out and everything. And he's like, well,
yeah,
off to Oz.
yep, that's it. That was the one. Thank you.
It was wonderful. Were there anything, I mean, trivia wise, it was the stuff about the Papua New Guinea tribe.
Yeah, too.
Um,
Mhm.
it was, we also find out for the first time that Samantha was once engaged.
Mhm, mhm.
And then there's a weird trivia piece about the actual physical prop for the binoculars that they look through. And I don't understand a single word of this paragraph, so I'm not going to read it.
That is okay. That is perfectly acceptable.
Um, oh, I'm so sorry. The caveman did have a name. It was Jamala.
So what were the freaks?
Frakes was the anthropologist who got set on fire in the opening credits.
Gotcha. I kept hearing that name and I was like, I don't know who this
Yes,
person is.
Frakes was the
What race
anthropologist.
is. I don't know if it was a name, if it was a race. I
No, no,
wrote it
no.
down to come back to.
Yes, Frakes was their anthropologist. Oh, this is such a good error. It only kind of makes sense. Um, so Teal'c does this thing. He calls Jack O'Neill all the time.
Mhm.
He calls Sam, I think he calls her Carter. He never, and I'm pretty sure consistently for the entire rest of the show, refers to Daniel as anything other than Daniel Jackson. Whole full name every time. Except in one scene in this episode, he did just say Daniel, and that is a character error because he will only ever call him Daniel Jackson.
I love it.
Yeah. I was just trying to see if there was anything because sometimes they like give you like references, like when you do things like mention Wizard of Oz, but it didn't give me any references. Just weird quotes and goofs. Um, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, no, stupid. I hate when factual errors on IMDb are not actually factual.
I know.
They make me so angry. So this one says Connor takes SG1 to the remains of Frakes, who was shot, then burned by pouring lamp oil and lighting with a torch. Only a pile of ash and dog tags remain. Such a fire would be nowhere near hot enough to reduce the body to ash, which would require a much greater accelerant in a larger quantity and or an industrial crematory furnace. They should have found a charred body. Which is already explained by the UV level of the planet and the sun burning people to death. There was a higher accelerant called the sun.
Yes.
So your factual error is incorrect.
Yes. Congratulations. You're wrong.
Who would you like to punch?
I mean, Jonas.
Yeah, it's not really a question.
I know.
Except that I'd like to give an honorable mention for the unnamed guy who follows Hansen and does not fight back the way Frakes and Connor did. Because, like, it's one thing to be an egotistical prick. It's another thing to blindly let people die just because you have no backbone.
Mm-hmm. Talking to people that followed Hitler.
And Jared Leto.
Yes. Also you people, the ones that are still actively doing things.
Yeah.
And how about everything is very culty.
Everything is very culty.
Hitler was a cult.
But like anything could be a cult.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that.
Like even like watching like TV shows can become culty. Like Bachelor Nation is a cult.
Oh my gosh, so much. I mean, I've always said I wanted to start a cult where we just wear black and eat snacks.
Oh my God, that was my birthday party. We just wore
I
black and ate
know.
snacks.
I know.
And I only cried once.
Oh, look at you.
Listen, I drank a bottle and a half of wine on an empty stomach. So, like, I'm honestly impressed that I only cried once.
I'm very impressed. Like a record.
I know. So there's
Speaking of
that.
birthdays, sorry, Montana, we forgot to mention that our episode 3 episodes ago came out on your birthday. So happy late birthday.
We recorded it so far in advance that like it didn't even click in our brain. But we still love you.
Me too.
This episode is coming out on April 10th. Is that anyone's birthday that we need to be aware of? I don't think so. No. Cool. Great.
I don't think I have a lot going on in April other than like Easter.
Well, my mom's birthday is in April, and my parents' anniversary is in April, and my best friend Nathan, his birthday is in April, but his birthday is on a Thursday where an episode is coming out that we've already recorded that we didn't say happy birthday to him, but it's okay because he doesn't listen to this podcast.
Well, how dare he? But
Right.
that's fine. When is your mom's birthday? We like her.
Hers is not till the 18th, so we got time.
Okay.
Yeah. Who was your MVP?
I picked Jack.
Jack was pretty good this episode.
I thought it was nice that he really tried to only be helpful and to everyone, to Sam, to Connor. He really stepped up to be who he needed to be.
Yeah. I will also give some credit to Teal'c. I mean, I always give credit to Teal'c, always, but like his being comfortable enough with the team that he just is like, you know what? I'm not stopping Sam. Better let her go. Like that level of knowing everyone now, yeah. I like it. I like it a lot.
I know. I do love Teal'c.
Do you have any predictions?
Oh my God, I forgot about predictions. I was so thrown off this had a cold open and it messed everything up in my brain. Truly, like the first like 5 minutes, I don't know what happened in this episode until you told me again because I like was so thrown off. I was like, so da 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 da. I mean, I don't know where we're going still. Like everything is different every episode, and so like
it's very true.
I assume we're gonna go to a different planet than we
probably. It would be nice if like one day we I don't know, even like remotely go back to the fact that Daniel has a missing wife. We just keep forgetting.
I know, like it'd be like I know because you told me that they didn't want this to be like a one-off show Monster of the Week and not like Doctor Who style. They wanted it to be like a storyline still, but as of yet, we haven't really got an intertwined storyline.
And to be fair, like we said, it's only 5 episodes and it's a lot of world building, and that does happen. And I think that's one of the reasons why sci-fi shows tend to last longer because they have to do so much world building before they get into real story stuff.
It's like a deep fantasy book. I mean, you look at Brandon Sanderson, his books are like 10,000
right. Or like even in terms of like things like the Game of Thrones books, they're like 100 million pages long each.
Yeah.
So no, I get world building is a huge part of the problem in terms of like piecing a coherent story together. But hopefully we like swing around back to like some character that we already know. Because it's a little difficult.
Or like build directly from where we left off. Because like every time we start a new episode, it's like we've skipped.
There's been like a time jump.
Yeah, and like I want to feel more cohesive if that's how they want it to be, and less like one-off episodes. Like I feel like I could have watched any of these episodes in any order, other than like the first one.
Right.
But the rest of them, I feel like I could have watched it in any order and it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, and I will say, obviously the early stuff of the show is the stuff I remember the least because I was so young when it came out.
Right.
And I know that like there definitely are more coherent, longer arcs as the show goes on. And like, I know for a fact, like the spin-off shows are much more arcy. So like, I know it's coming. It's just,
we have to get there.
we have to get there, and it's
Right.
taking longer than I want it to.
Yes, I agree.
Well, I mean, and the thing is, it must, because it wouldn't have the following that the show wouldn't
Oh my
have the
gosh, we
following that
wouldn't
it
have
has.
75 seasons of this show.
Right.
if-
Or like, or even just like, if we were looking at stuff for like following other Instagrams or like connecting with people on social media for the show. And like, if you search for Stargate podcasts, there's like a trillion. People love talking about it. The Stargate Reddit board is like the most active of anything that I follow. Like,
Yeah.
people like it. So like, there has to be a reason. We just
For sure.
have to get past the awkward intro 90s.
Yeah, and I think it's because at this point, I mean, obviously at this point, they didn't know they were going to have 10 seasons and 5 spinoffs. I mean, they know they had a movie that some people seem to like that they didn't explain anything in, and they were making a show now. Like,
Right. And well, and it's also in comparison. So the two shows that we're reviewing right now, Stargate and Bates Motel, in comparison, they are literally 16 years apart in terms of when they were released. And the way that the average human viewed television in those 16 years was a massive difference. And so it's not fair to compare the pace at which a show from the late 90s did things to a show that a cable net or like a premium network in the 2010s did things. Like, that's not really a fair comparison.
Also can't compare cross genres either, which is, I mean, sci-fi is, like you said, they're world building, they're going to move a little slower. Horror is all about suspense and intensity, so they're going to move a little faster. It's just the style of the show it is. So and I haven't watched a lot of like true sci-fi, I guess. Like, I mean, I watched the Star Wars movies all once.
But also movies are different. And also, even now, like, a lot of people who like Doctor Who don't enjoy classic Who as much because of how slow it is. But like, that's what TV was like in the 60s and 70s. Like, that's, and New Who has the added benefit of a lot of the world building things they didn't have to do because they just assumed that you would know about it.
Yeah, and they used a lot of like historical pop culture references or whatever. I mean, they use Van Gogh, they use like
which the show's always been like that because the original intention of the show was supposed to be educational, which people forget.
But it doesn't have to build a world because the world's already there. They're just jumping times, they're not jumping planets.
Well, they do. They jump planets. They jump into a lot of different races, and they have a lot of.
But it's not quite the same.
It's not quite the same. No, you're right. So there's that. But I do think it will get faster. It will get better. We're only 5 episodes in, and
I don't think it's terrible.
And we already like the characters.
Right. I think the characters are great.
Yeah. Which, I mean, we were 2 seasons into Dead Like Me before we really liked any of the characters. So
very true. and that ended up being like the thing we liked about that show was the characters.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
and I
Hemlock
do
Grove.
believe,
In Hemlock Grove, we watched the whole show and still only like one character. So,
and I think with Stargate, we are starting out liking the characters, which is good, but it's such a long running show and such like a big show that I do think the storyline is gonna get better. I don't think it's gonna be one of those things where we're like watching it for 2 seasons and then we're like, well, the characters did great. Like, I think even before the season's over, we're gonna like be
for sure.
Yeah. So I'm not really worried about that. And if any of you are, I don't think you should be. With my very little knowledge, I think I'm right. So
if you don't think we're right and you want to start a fight about it, you can do that on social media or like say nice things too. Like, but sometimes confrontation draws more people in.
That's true.
That's why cults happen. So You can follow us on any of the social medias at Death and Aliens. You can email us at deathandaliens@gmail.com. And you can follow me at EMKAY_superstar.
And you can find me at CECloud13.
And we will see you guys later this week for our next Thriller Thursday.
Yay! See ya.
Bye.